Ready for a deep dive? We're tackling Daniel G. Andujar today, a Spanish artist who uses art to, well, stir the pot a little.
Yeah, he's not afraid of a little provocation.
That's an understatement.
Well,
We're talking about a guy who flew a banner over cities that said democratizing democracy. It makes you stop and think, right?
it definitely grabs your attention. But behind that boldness, there's this really insightful critique of power structures. How technology plays into it all really makes you look at the world differently.
So we're not just browsing a gallery here. Andujar's work makes you uncomfortable sometimes in a good way.
Absolutely. And to really get where he's coming from, let's rewind a bit. Andujar grew up in Spain, and back then, information was really restricted, especially when it came to art. It's hard to imagine in today's world, but access was really limited.
I can see how that would be frustrating for someone like him, curious mind, eager to learn.
Exactly. He's talked about this feeling of being surrounded by knowledge, but locked out, like it was right there, but inaccessible. And that experience really shaped his drive to challenge those barriers. You know, who are the gatekeepers deciding who gets to access what, who gets to decide?
It's almost like those early experiences planted a seed for his later work, his need to break down those barriers, make information accessible.
It's all connected. Then comes the internet, this whole new frontier. I mean, it was the opposite of what he'd experienced, this open space. At least that's how it felt at first.
It was like the Wild West, right? Information everywhere.
Exactly. And Andujar was one of those early pioneers who saw the potential not just as a place to show art, but as a tool for real-world change.
He was one of the first net artists, right? Pushing boundaries with this new technology.
Oh, he was on the cutting edge. One of his early projects, Technologies to the People, sums up that early internet hopefulness, but with a critical lens.
Technologies to the people. I like the sound of it. So what was the goal?
Well, he was fascinated by how corporations were starting to use the internet, all that slick advertising lingo. So he made this fake company website. It looked so real, like one of those early .com startups, you know?
Was he trying to fool people?
Not really. It wasn't about tricking anyone, but more like holding up a mirror. He used that same language, that same corporate aesthetic to make people think twice about the promises of technology.
So it's like he's saying, don't believe everything you see. Let's pull back the curtain a little.
Exactly. He wanted to expose those power dynamics that were already at play. You know, even in this seemingly open and democratic space, there's still manipulation and control.
Which is a theme throughout his work, isn't it? Technology as a tool can be used for good or bad. It's not neutral.
Right. He saw both sides. On the one hand, this incredible potential to connect people, share information. But on the other hand, surveillance, censorship, misinformation, it's a double-edged sword.
And that leads us to evalencia.org. I feel like this project embodies his whole hacking the system concept.
Yeah, it's a perfect example. So Evalencia, he launched this online platform in the early 2000s. On the surface, it seemed like a forum to talk about art and cultural stuff happening in Valencia.
Sounds harmless enough. What made it a hack, though?
Well, it was built for critique, even dissent. They allowed anonymous posting, really shook things up.
Wow, anonymous posting back then. That's a bold move.
Yeah.
Gotta wonder what people were saying on there.
It was a hotbed for debate. People really used the platform to critique the government's cultural projects, specifically this massive architectural project, the City of Arts and Sciences.
Oh, I've seen pictures of that futuristic-looking complex, right?
That's the one. It was a huge investment, and Andujar and others on Evalencia were arguing that these grand projects were often out of touch, didn't really reflect the needs of the community.
So using art as a lens to look at those bigger issues, the government priorities, all of that.
Exactly. And they weren't exactly being subtle about it. The government was not happy.
I can imagine. So what happened?
Well, in 2003, the University of Alicante, which hosted the website, they shut it down.
No way. Really?
Yeah. They said it was because of technical difficulties, but...
Come on, technical difficulties. That's the oldest excuse in the book.
Right. Especially at that time post 9/11, governments cracking down on dissent.
So it becomes this whole other issue about censorship
Mm.
and the internet, this space that's supposed to be free and open.
Absolutely. And Andujar was tuned into that. He saw the potential, how the internet could amplify those marginalized voices, but also how easily it could be controlled, just like the offline world.
It's amazing how this one project, Evalencia, it touches on so many of his big themes: power, control, technology, and how art can challenge those systems, But this wasn't just a one-time thing for him. He kept exploring those ideas, like with the Postcapital Archive.
The Postcapital Archive is fascinating. It takes that critique of power, of technology, even further. It's like he's saying capitalism has seeped into everything. How we think, how we experience the world, even how we understand history.
Okay, now you have to tell me more about this archive. It sounds intense.
It is. It's massive. He's collected all kinds of digital stuff, images, writing, videos, even corporate logos, advertisements, all organized in these themes. And when you look at them together, you see these connections, these power dynamics you might not have noticed before.
So what kind of things are in this archive? Paint me a picture.
Okay, there's this section called The Wall. He puts images of the Berlin Wall coming down next to, like, advertisements for smartphones and luxury goods.
Interesting. So he's drawing a parallel there, like we've traded one wall for another.
Exactly. We might have more freedom in some ways, but are we really free? In this digital world, constantly tracked, monitored, it makes you think.
It definitely does. He's not giving us the answers, is he? More like making us aware of the questions.
That's Andujar for you. He wants us to see those connections, media, technology, consumerism, how it all shapes our worldview. And he does this interesting thing with definitions in the archive.
Definitions, what do you mean?
He'll define terms like capitalism, socialism, basic concepts, right? But he uses the Wikipedia entries.
Huh, Wikipedia. Interesting choice.
Because it highlights something important, how even these simple ideas, they're always being debated, redefined, especially online. It's like he's saying, don't take anything at face value. Always question. Always dig a little deeper.
So relevant, especially today, when we're just bombarded with information constantly. It's easy to just passively accept what we read online without really thinking about it.
Exactly. Andujar is giving us the tools to navigate that. Be more discerning, be aware of our own biases, engage with different perspectives.
So it's not just about art, it's about being a responsible digital citizen, which in the 21st century is pretty crucial.
It's essential, and he doesn't want us to be passive, just along for the ride. He wants us to actively participate in shaping this digital world.
Which leads us to that other key part of his work, the whole artist as activist thing. He doesn't want to just create art for galleries. He wants it to have an impact.
He sees art as a form of intervention, disrupting the system, getting people to think critically.
And he doesn't just talk about it, he lives it, right?
Oh, absolutely. He's all about open access, makes his work free online, download it, share it, even remix it.
He's giving his work away.
He is. Challenges that whole traditional idea of ownership, of authorship, which in the art world is kind of a radical move.
It's like he's saying, this isn't about me, the artist. It's about creating something that belongs to everyone.
Exactly. And he takes it a step further with these collaborative workshops he does.
What happens in those?
He invites people to directly engage with his art, add their own ideas, their own perspectives, blurs that line between the artist and the audience.
So it's not passive. You're not just observing, you're part of the process.
Exactly. And it speaks to his commitment to democratizing art, making it accessible, relevant. And that ties into another important theme, this idea of the digital divide.
Well, the idea that not everyone has the same access to technology, to information. And that creates new inequalities.
Exactly. And he doesn't shy away from that. He knows that those without access are increasingly marginalized in this digital age. And art, for him, it's a way to bridge that divide, create a space for dialogue.
That's something I admire about his work. It's deeply intellectual, challenging, but it's also grounded in these real-world issues. Social justice, equality, it's political in a good way.
He doesn't shy away from that either. He sees art as inherently political, questioning power, challenging the status quo, imagining different possibilities.
He's using art to start conversations that need to be had.
And he does it in a way that's engaging. Provocative, yes, but also thought-provoking. He gets that art can connect with people on an emotional level, makes those abstract ideas feel real, immediate.
I think that's why his work resonates. It's not just intellectual. You feel it, you experience it, it stays with you. And it's not just, hey, look at all these problems, right? He's actually offering solutions, ways we can be more than just passive bystanders.
Exactly. He talks about the importance of hacking, but, and I know this sounds cliche, he doesn't mean like breaking into computers. It's more about finding those creative workarounds, those unexpected ways, and that let us see these systems differently, maybe even change them from within.
Like that banner, democratizing democracy. He's not anti-democracy. If anything, he wants to make it work better, more inclusive.
Right. And he truly believes that we can apply those same hacking principles to how we live our digital lives.
Okay, so what does that look like? How do I hack my digital life?
Well, It starts with awareness. Where are we getting our information? What are their biases? Are we stuck in an echo chamber, only hearing what we want to hear? It's about actively seeking out different viewpoints, questioning our own assumptions, and using our voices to speak up about things we care about.
So being more intentional,
Yeah.
not just passively scrolling.
Exactly. We have more of a choice than we think. We have agency. We can be more critical of what we read, more mindful of the platforms we use, more proactive about shaping this digital world we want to live in.
And that's where digital agency comes in.
Exactly. It's about taking back some of that power. We're not just consumers of technology. We can be active participants. We can shape how it develops, how it impacts us.
It's actually pretty empowering when you think about it. We can make a difference, even within these massive, seemingly impersonal systems.
That's the heart of Andujar's message. He wants us to think critically, question everything, never stop imagining something better.
A true visionary. He saw these issues coming a mile away.
And the good news is, people are starting to listen. Digital literacy is becoming more and more important. We're waking up to the fact that we need to be more critical about the information that's out there.
And that's thanks, in part, to artists like Andujar. They're starting these important conversations, making us think differently.
It's a good reminder that art's not just about aesthetics. It's about engagement, asking the tough questions, and hopefully inspiring us to create a better future.
So the next time you're online and you see something that makes you pause, that makes you think twice, remember Daniel G. Andujar. Remember, there's always more to the story, another side, another perspective, and we have the power to shape this digital world, make it more just, more equitable,
It all starts with questioning.
and never stop hacking.